My name is Stephen Cohen, and we're here today for Yom HaZikaron, and Hanan Fixler, one of my Learning Center teachers, was in the Israeli Army, and I'm here to interview him. So, Hanan, how long were you in the Army?
I was in the Army for a year and a half.
Which part of the Army were you in?
I was in combat engineering, which is a unit that deals with bombs, defusing and detonating bombs.
Around how many bombs have you defused or set up?
Many during training, but the main thing we did was defusing Syrian landmines in the Golan Heights.
Oh. Have you ever been in danger?
Real danger, no, because we were really careful and we had the entire suits and shoes, special shoes, and we went through a lot of training. But yes, in the landmines, technically it was very dangerous.
What was the scariest moment you've ever been in since joining the Army?
When we would go into Amala, into civilians' houses, into wanted civilians' houses, in the middle of the night, like 2 or 3 a.m., and just pull them out of their houses. That was extremely scary with the whole village watching us.
Why did you have to do that?
Well, they were suspected terrorists, and we took them in for questioning and for interrogation.
Have you had any funny experiences in the Army?
Well, I guess a funny story I have was we were stationed near Eilat in the south,
right?
Very close to Eilat, and we once marched, with our equipment and gurneys and whatever. It was, I think, like 12 or 16 kilometers. And when we finally got to Eilat, it was morning already, and we were all like dying and sweaty and starving. And our commander gave us 20 minutes to go into the mall to get, a coffee or bagel or whatever. And we got only 20 minutes, and we were going to take advantage of those full 20 minutes. So we just started running, 90 soldiers just running towards the mall, all with guns and vests and helmets. And we didn't think about all the civilians sitting there, Israeli civilians sitting there,
right,
just having their morning coffee. And they freaked seeing 90 soldiers with guns, equipment, everything running towards them. So they got up, they started running, tables flew, mugs were broken. And then my commander had to pick up his megaphone and shout, stop running, you got another 5 minutes.
Did you have any other interactions with civilians?
Well, we had a lot of interaction going to and from the base, but then we weren't with our vests and helmets. We were just, with presentable uniforms. There are 2 uniforms. There's the presentable ones where you go home from and to the base, and then there's the crummy, ripped, dull uniform which you train and battle with.
Is presentation important for the Army?
It's extremely important, so much that they have a whole division of soldiers in the Army that are considered police army, and they walk in bus stations, like central bus stations in all the cities. You could write them tickets and they get punishments.
Wow. Have you or any of your friends been caught by the Army police?
I've never been caught because I was a good soldier, but I have a few friends who got caught and got, as a punishment, 45 days detention in the base. They didn't go home for 45 days.
What are some other things that can get you in trouble in the Army?
Well, having long hair is a big one. Sometimes even if just part of your shirt has to be tucked in, and if a little of it is sticking out, you could get not 45 days, but you could definitely get a ticket for that.
Why is it so important?
Well, for 2 reasons. First reason, for the soldier himself to respect the name of the IDF and carry it, honorably. And unfortunately, the IDF is the only army, I guess, that the entire world looks upon on a daily basis under a microscope, and you have to be perfect.
In the American Army, there are flag ceremonies. Do you do flag ceremonies in the Israeli Army?
So not on a regular basis, but on Yom HaZikaron we have a ceremony where the entire company, whatever, stands by. We raise the flag and then we bring it down to the middle of the pole, which commemorates the day.
Speaking of Yom HaZikaron, how did you commemorate the day in Israel?
Well, as soldiers, there's not that are in the army on that day. There's not much to do. There's a ceremony, which we talked about, and then they just go about their business, continue with their training, or whatever they need to be doing that day. As civilians, Yerushalayim is packed with people who come to Har Herzl, which is the cemetery of all the soldiers, the number one cemetery of all the soldiers who died. The mountain itself is divided into those wars. We have the first war in 48, and then 6-Day War, right, and Yom Kippur and whatever. Everyone comes, they close the area around, I'm talking like a few good blocks, and they have buses, free buses going back and forth. Places packed. You have a lot of youth group kids giving out flowers or water bottles. Yom HaZikaron is always like the hottest day in Israel, boiling hot. Everyone obviously wearing white shirts, blue pants. They have a little sticker that says Izkor, remember, with a few flowers. Yeah, and so a lot of people go there. A lot of soldiers also with the presentable uniform we spoke about.
Do you personally go on any specific graves?
Well, yeah, for the past 7 years in a row, I go with my friend who I went to high school with. So when we were both in the army, we made a point of meeting and going. We have a few graves. The first grave is of his uncle, who he didn't know at all. He died Yom Kippur, 73. We go there. We say, a few Tehillim. The name, you say his name is Yoram, so you would say Perik Tehillim, that's how we say Yud, then a Vav, a Resh, and a Mem. They give out those booklets as well on Har Herzl. Then we go to Milchemet Shlom HaGalil, which is 82. We go to Shlomo Uman, that's the guy's name, and he was the father of my first counselor in Bnei Akiva. And at that grave, right next to his, are two right next to his, are another grave of two soldiers who the families met because the graves of their sons were right next to each other, and we know them now because we're there every year for the past 7 years, and that's how they know each other, and they are in good contact. Yom HaZikaron is when they meet. All of this is before 11. We have the siren at 11, a 2-minute siren. And after that, we go to people we did know, sadly, and we go to a boy named Nadav Elad, who was 6 years older than me. He was in my neighborhood, and he was killed not in a war, but just in a mission. He was gunned down by a Israeli Arabic jeep that just passed by and shot, and they killed him and his friend on the spot. So we go there, and that's already more emotional and more. Right. So you see the entire neighborhood come, and now sadly the past few years since we've been in the army, so we know pretty much a lot of people who have died not in a war, but again on missions and whatever. And that's when you meet your friends you went to high school with but you haven't seen since. You see them once or twice a year, and one of those times is on Har Herzl, standing right next to graves of people we knew or went to the army with. And so that's like the last place we go before we leave the mountain. All of us just chilling there, hanging there, saying hi next to these graves.
I'd like to thank you very much for having this interview with me, because for me, I find it much more interesting and meaningful having someone telling me about how their Yom HaZikaron is living in Israel and having connections with people, as opposed to someone in America not having connections with people. So, yeah.